difference in a Lotus and a Cooper was if you were good enough, the Lotus was faster.
It was exciting. Of course, you had Jim Clark, of course, but there's Graham Hill and Dan Gurney and Jack Brabham, and they're all, you know, good racers and people who had a go. It was great times.
We're celebrating 60 years of Formula One Grand Prix racing here at historic Silverstone. We've collected together 6 running cars representing each of those decades. Last time out, you'd have seen me grappling with the Maserati 250F. Today, it's the iconic Lotus 49, driven by the great Jim Clark. A classic and pure era of Formula One. Legendary world-class drivers head-to-head in these fragile machines. Racing in traditional colours, just before sponsors' logos would dominate forevermore.
The British Grand Prix draws enormous crowds. Clark and Hill are in pole position again on the grid, with Brabham and a further 18 cars lined up behind. Jim Clark is now approaching his final lap, and all are willing him to the checkered flag. This is the moment shared by thousands and relished by the Ford and Lotus camp.
There's something special about going to Silverstone and knowing that you're heroes, and then you see up on the wall somewhere, you see the pictures of the Mosses and the Brookses and the Fangios and those names and James Hunts up on the walls. I think it's just, you know, it's fabulous to come here and just sort of engulf yourself in that atmosphere.
Okay, we're leaving the pit lane in this 1967 Lotus 49, a car that won its first ever Grand Prix with the amazing Jim Clark at the wheel. It feels so small. It feels like I'm on a motorbike actually, as if there's nothing in front of me really. Just an awful lot of performance behind me. 400 horsepower. The iconic Cosworth V8 Formula One engine. I can see why this car suddenly moved the whole game forward. It's so much lighter and more nimble than the Maserati of the late 50s, for example. Nice little gearbox, you have to use it sequentially. Brakes a little bit dead. Engine is very drivable, very tractable. That lovely DFV sound. The whole car just slides across the road, but it is in balance. It is in unison. Just open her up a bit now. I can see why Clark so enjoyed just turning up and thrashing everybody in this car. It was the beginning of an era. Jim Clark, Colin Chapman, Keith Duckworth, Cosworth, and they just dominated for many, many years with this kind of rear-engine layout. I'm sitting in a bathtub of fuel. My knees are jammed up against the bulkhead. No doubt about it, you do feel exposed in these cars, but they become, after a while, rewarding. Now I'm wearing seatbelts today when this car first won the Zandvoort Formula One Grand Prix on its debut in 1967. For sure then, they did not have seatbelts. What a lovely sound from that Cosworth engine. Well, it's certainly been a pleasure. I felt slightly tentative in this car, in that it seems very keen to try to spin off, but there's a purity about it, a nimbleness. The engine is a peach.
This is the first time we've been able to coordinate the build of the engine and the chassis together and design each one to suit the other. And with the sort of weight and simplicity and power that keeps coming up, I think we're going to have a fabulous motor car.
Days later, I finally understood what unnerved me about driving this car. The engine was simply 10 years ahead of the chassis. Apparently, even Jim Clark was much happier when they later added wings and better tyres. But as design genius Colin Chapman rightly said, it's a fabulous